Hello, everybody, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Tuesday, the 9th of June. Today, I am off to Gimli, Manitoba. There's a hotel there that we have a clergy conference for our Anglican Diocese of Brandon, the Anglican Diocese of Rupert's Land, which is like Winnipeg, the eastern part of Manitoba, and also our Evangelical Lutheran Church in Canada partners from the MNO, so Manitoba Northwestern Ontario Synod. So I'll be there with Bishop Naboth Nzonga from Rupert's Land and Bishop Jason Vinko from the MNO. So I'm very excited about that. I'm hoping that all of my videos this week will get put up on time. Otherwise, you'll have to look for them for your notifications from YouTube. If you haven't already and you would like to receive them without having to wait for me to publish them on Facebook, please go ahead and go to notifications, subscribe to the channel, and ask for notifications. And then you should get emails or something to let you know that there's new content. One of the things I love about things like Clergy Conference or House of Bishops is that I get to hang out with people and just get a different perspective. I mean, I work with Cheryl, my archdeacon, every day, and Chris, who's the dean here, he works in the cathedral with us. But I don't often get to have those sit down around coffee or a beer or nachos at the bar or something and just sit and chat. Now, clergy conferences and House of Bishops and things like that are filled with all kinds of education and things like that. Of course, they're continuing education events. But there's also the things you learn when you're not really learning. And I have been, as some of you know, a part of my daily routine is to take at least 10 minutes every day to read something theological, to keep my finger in the pie of theology. And it's not always up-to-date works. Some of them are books I've had for years, but they're interesting and I always learn something. And something that I learned from a colleague, a bishop, the Bishop of Kootenay, on the west in British Columbia. She's involved with a group that talks about the church in relationship with other churches. And she was at a conference and they were talking about decolonization of the church. And she came back and recommended this book by Kwok Pui-Lan, who is, I believe, an American author. It's called The Anglican Tradition from a Postcolonial Perspective. And normally, my 10 minutes, I can read 6 or 7 pages in that 10 minutes. I'm a fairly quick reader. And that's with, the highlighter in hand and jotting down notes and things like this. This book is it's not dense, like it's not a hard read, but the book is so packed with sentences that have like a gut impact that I'm averaging 3 or 4 pages. So it's going to take me all year to read this book. And that's okay. It probably won't, but that's okay because I'm getting something powerful from. I've already got, you see my little stickies here. Those are all going to be church at home things, but I would like to share with you the most recent one that I read. And this one is taken from, I read this last week. And it was taken from the second chapter, I think, Decolonizing the Anglican Churches. And she writes here that continuing the work from the civil rights movement, Kelly Brown Douglas, a leading womanist theologian, and I think I want to explain that she has designated between a feminist theologian and a womanist theologian. Feminist being all things female, and a womanist theologian. She's talking about particularly women in the black culture, the black society, like the black women, but also black men. Like she's really focused. Like it doesn't seem like a natural womanist theology. Doesn't seem like a natural thing for that description. But unless I'm mistaken, the way this author talks about black womanist theology is taking the perspective of the black woman and extrapolating that to the black people. Just so you understand what she's saying. So I'm going to say that again. Continuing the work from the civil rights movement, Kelly Brown Douglas, a leading womanist theologian and Episcopal church a priest, so Anglican priest in the States, has criticized the ideology behind American exceptionalism and manifest destiny, which is based on white hegemony and anti-blackness. She argues that to follow Christ means that the church must listen and respond to the cries of the crucified people of our time. Let me read that part again. She's criticized the ideology behind American exceptionalism and manifest destiny, which is based on white hegemony and anti-blackness. She argues that to follow Christ means that the church must listen and respond to the cries of the crucified people of our time. When I read that, I stopped. I went back, I got my highlighter. I read it 3 or 4 times because it gave me goosebumps. It really made me start thinking about, who do we think about when we think about the people we're called to serve, who we're called to listen to? Who was it that Jesus was serving himself? And when she said we're called to reach out and listen to the voices of those who are crucified in our time, I'm not suggesting that all those who are crucified, metaphorically speaking, in our time are Jesus Christ. But think about what that means. Who did the Romans crucify? They crucified the one who was speaking up against the human powers, who was speaking against, he was speaking against those who would put down the people. He was speaking about those who were taking taxes and enslaving people and saying that somehow we are better than everyone else. And Jesus was crucified not just for all of the theological reasons, but he was politically crucified because he had the audacity to stand up and say, no, you don't have the right to treat these people as though they are less than. They are equally children of God. And so when we think about the church and who we're called to serve and the voices we're called to listen to, isn't that exactly who we should be listening to? Shouldn't we be listening to the people who have been crucified, the people who are being crucified in our society today? Now, we're not stringing people up on crosses. At least I hope to God we're not. But we are seeing a resurgence, at least in parts of North America, and there are parts of Canada where this is happening as well, where we are looking at a rise in anti-Semitism. We're looking at a rise in um, in in racial hatreds. We're looking at a rise in people who are othering and saying, if you're not like me, then you are wrong. And how quickly that slope is to be slippery when you are wrong becomes you are against God. And if you're against God, then I have permission to I have permission to annihilate you. It's a big stretch. I know that, but really isn't it? Not that big a stretch at all. Look back to the 1930s Germany and Europe. We can look to Jim Crow in the States, and we can look to what's happening in the world right now, around the world, with authoritarianism and people trying to come back, and traditional wives. Women should not be educated. They should be, if they are educated, then they should know better that their place is in the kitchen and and having babies. We need to dictate who can vote and make it as difficult as possible for people to be able to vote. Doesn't it sound like we're beginning to crucify people again? And some of the biggest voices that speak out against these things are being the most pilloried. As a church, we have to stand up to that. We have to become the voice for those who are being crucified in our day. We have to stand en masse and say, no, not again. We have to stand up for those who are being othered, those who are being shown that they are in the minority, even if they're not. We have to have a voice that's bigger and louder and more powerful and more faithful to what Christ has called us to do than the voices who are claiming Christ's voice, but don't have a clue what Jesus really meant or said. Yeah, what she said there. And I know that as a member of the church that is a colonial church, I've got work to do. As a bishop, I've got work to do to decolonialize our church. I'm struggling to understand how I can do that faithfully without undermining all of the things that make us church. That's just one of the struggles I have. To follow Christ means that the church must listen and respond to the cries of the crucified people of our time. Amen. Amen. Thank you, Kelly Brown Douglas. Episcopalian priest, for that wisdom. Have a great day. God bless. And all things being equal, I will see you again tomorrow if I can get it published for Church at Home with Rachel.